Things are going to chaos on the right and the left. It seems like all of the leaders have left the stage or are preparing to go that way. So, who's going to carry the banner? Especially now on the right that Dennis Prager, Dr. Jordan Peterson, and Charlie Kirk are nowhere to be found. Today, we'll tell you what's going down and what the path forward might be for entertainment companies looking to figure out where will America be in the next 3 years. Hello, folks, and welcome back to the channel that never fears, not for a second, not for a minute. It's not who we are here on the Pro Channel. Folks, as we dive in today, click the like button, and we'll get on our way of explaining what has come to pass and what will be passing by. Folks, we've got a deep dive. It's the kind of video you need to know if you want to understand what's really going on in the culture, in the subcultures, on the left and on the right. Ladies and gentlemen, out of the New York Post by Ariel Zilver. This one's an old one, but it matters greatly. Jordan Peterson, Dr. Peterson, was near death after he was hospitalized with pneumonia and sepsis, according to his daughter, Michaela. This came out October 5th, 2025. It goes on to talk about just how close Dr. Peterson came to not being with us anymore. And we're wishing him very well. Hope he's recovering, and we're hoping he'll be back later this year or early next year. We would love that. That would be tremendous. But I use this just as an entryway point, guys, to talk about something very important. That is, we have been watching the fracturing of both sides of the political spectrum and the ideologies across America. People have been wanting to know what I think about some of this very spicy stuff and the debates that are happening in the right wing and in the left wing. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys because, to me, what I see happening, I want to put this out there so people can understand, so that they can make sense of what's going on around them. And this is going to affect entertainment greatly. It's going to affect news organizations greatly, the new media. Everybody's going to be touched by this. What's happening, I believe, is that following the passing of Charlie Kirk, we have a dearth of the voices that were real leadership and maybe spiritual leadership on the right side, right? You don't have Dennis Prager right now, and we hope that he can return. But, you know, Dennis Prager had a terrible accident and is paralyzed. You don't have Dr. Jordan Peterson. You don't have Charlie Kirk. And also, people are jockeying for position because President Trump is only going to be the president for another 3 years, and then somebody else is going to take power. And that means in 2 years, somebody's going to have to be presented as the next leader in that movement. At the same time, on the left, what you're left with is Barack Obama is old news. Barack Obama, the former President Obama, you know, he was the leader of the left, and he's kind of checked out a little bit. He doesn't speak to the new generation. And so that new generation is, you know, people want to say that the right is actually fighting against itself completely and totally right now, and the left is in unison. No, not at all. The young people, and I think on both sides of this, feel like they've been left out. They've been, left high and dry. And so not only do you have the situation of Barack Obama no longer being sort of the messianic figure of the left, but also they're picking people like Mamdani, right? People like Mamdani are coming into power, and that's going up against the traditional side of the left. Both sides right now in the country are they're not completely leaderless, but there's a jockeying for who's going to be the new power broker and where this is going to go in terms of power. Jonas, what do you think about the idea that, at least on the right, they're definitely missing some of the leadership that was there, that was mooring their belief systems and helping with the cohesion and a return to spirituality? And frankly, Jonas, maybe too, we underestimated when Charlie Kirk passed away. You know, I thought that was going to be the moment where everybody said, man, you know, people are out to get us. Like, literally, this is existential. We have to come together. And the opposite is happening. I think that those who inspired us have gone away, and we hope they return. But now there's a battle for who's going to capture the vision, at least on the right, but probably on the left too. And Mamdani's one of those on the left that's capturing it. What do you say to that?
Right. So this is an interesting thing, and I was having a conversation earlier today with someone who is, I don't want to say they're a Washington person, but they know a lot of people in Washington, and I've gotten to work with them and talk about a lot of these things from a very, very clear data-driven standpoint. That's probably enough hints that people know who it is. I'm not looking to drop somebody's name here. I think that the death of Charlie Kirk, it wasn't. I think that it's not that Charlie Kirk was keeping everybody sane. I think Charlie Kirk was keeping he was presenting actually a very middle of the road conservative viewpoint. Not middle of the road when you talk about both sides, but it was a very studied, willing to debate conservative viewpoint. And I think him being assassinated was a match that struck a powder keg here. And we have a bunch of people who are looking at a conservative movement that has had a lot of unity, because we've had someone to look at and say, we're not going to be that. But now we have a lot of people looking for a moral position. And sometimes when people are looking for the moral position, they will go farther in morals to try to show that they're the most pure in whatever that ideological take is. So we have people going after like Allie Beth Stuckey because in a non-religious standpoint, she said something that could be viewed as religious. And so there's a bunch of ultra patriarchalists and things like that that are going after her over that. Or we've got J.D. Vance out here, and he says, well, my wife is not a Christian, but I try to be a good example to her. Now, that's a very complicated thing for anybody who is a Christian and married to someone who is not a Christian. But it's an opportunity for them to practice their faith in one of the most scrutinized situations that you possibly could be scrutinized by a non-believer. But people are looking at that and saying, well, see, he needs to be this over here. And to get out of the Christian standpoint and go for the strictly political idea here, there are people who are trying to find someone to blame for all of their problems, and they're looking for, and that is always a dangerous situation, as in we've looked at a conflict 70 years ago that was incited by the weird mustache man that was someone blaming other people for all of their, I'm going to say, self-inflicted problems. There are people out there that are looking to say, no, I am meaner, I am clearer, my message is clearer, even though it's a bad message, and saying, no, listen to me right now. There's a succession crisis with no clear answer right now. It's like the death of Superman, when all the different Supermen show up and none of them are quite the same thing as Kal-El Clark Kent. And you got all these different ideas of what Superman represents. In the end, they bring back Superman. I don't think that's going to happen in this situation. I think that everyone is looking for an answer, and everyone wants to be that answer, and no one is going to what they need to, which is principles first, cults of personality far secondary.
Well, the other thing too is, and those are all great points, what's happening right now, I believe, is that we've lost the narrative, or at least the conceptualization of what's really playing out there. And we'll get it back, because we're gonna bring that back here on this channel and in other places. The real fight out there in the world right now is between those who believe in truth and those who believe in power. This is a truth versus power situation. And that is being made much less clear by some of the divisions that are arising right now. But I think that's largely because we're not vision casting, at least on the right side. And on the left side, they're trying to decide which way they go. Do they moderate or they go more extreme? Mamdani is the extremification, right of the left, which is really something to go even farther, but that would be that. And there's not really a personality that's the moderating vision caster for the left. But culture, we've got to get back to, and we've got to stick to the realization that those who don't believe in truth, they're very dangerous. And, you know, if we fall for this balkanization, then we're all going to fall together. Fair enough.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that, Pro. I think that we're having trouble getting another personality with a solid moral center that can just speak out, you know, about right and wrong in a way that doesn't do more than just challenge people's preconceptions. I think that's one of the reasons that Charlie was very successful because he was reliable and consistent in his messaging. And none of it was done from a position of hate. Most of it was just driven by his solid moral center. And it's hard to identify that. We can identify strength in leadership. The current administration has demonstrated that. But it's hard to get an individual to do that because oftentimes in different situations and presented with facts that can be manipulated. I think a lot of people just they vary from that particular center point that they've been able to present to the public more often than not. And I think it creates the opportunity to call people out for being hypocrites, and that's like the biggest mistake you can make as one of those leading personalities, I believe.
Yeah, and I'll tell you too, guys, I guess I didn't realize, I watched when Dr. Peterson was going through the book of Exodus. I paid very close attention to that. And I really loved the conversations that were there. And he brought in these experts within Christianity, and he brought in people who are not within that Christian tent. So Dennis Prager was there weighing in and giving his thoughts. And he had, Jewish leaders who were giving their thoughts on the story of Exodus. And, the story of Exodus is an amazing thing because it essentially is not only spiritually extraordinarily important to a faith, but it's also probably the guiding light that led to the end of slavery across the globe in so much as we've ended it, right? William Wilberforce was largely inspired by the story of Exodus and beyond that. But, having people like Dr. Peterson and Dennis Prager and Charlie Kirk working to build up this compass inside people that recognize the divine value of every single individual. I didn't realize the cohesion, the glue that was, that if it was removed, how quickly things could devolve away from that. And so, we're paying very close attention to this. I want to go to the left, though, because on the left, they've been left kind of out in the wilderness, right? They had Kamala Harris, who really isn't a leader. I'm sorry, she's just not. They had Hillary Clinton that they rejected. Barack Obama was the guy who was seen as, he was it. He was hope and change, and now they don't have someone to hang their narrative on. They don't have a legend. They don't have a vision caster. And it seems like they're moving even farther away from the center. But it also may be quite alluring to young people right now.
Right.
That's the danger here that we can't forget about, Jonas.
So I want to throw this in here. If you've been following Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, he's been tracking a sentiment that is kind of an anti-populist, an economic populist, anti-establishment sentiment on the Gen Z side here. So it's not conservative or liberal, although there are representations of that on either side here. It's very much like the question of the system is broken. How do we fix it? And there's like four answers. One is burn it down. One is we need better experts. One is trust the experts. And I forget what the other of the four answers are. But it's not a question of right versus left in Gen Z. It is a question of how do we fix the system that is here, and it is a complete mistrust of the system. So Donald Trump ends up being the representation of one side of fixing the system, and Zoran Mondani ends up being the other side of that, the liberal side, and there are things that are morally detestable to the other side on the opposites of both sides of that coin here. So they're kind of like it's the same thing with Bernie Sanders, but more pronounced. And then with Zoran Mondani, they also have the idea that he is also appeases some of the white guilt that would have traditionally appealed to some liberals as well. So it's white liberals. I should just go ahead and say that since it's white guilt. I think that this is a very complex situation that is not going to be solved by establishment Republicans who are trying, they're waiting out the idea that MAGA is going to go away. I don't think MAGA is going to go away. And also the Democrat Party, which has a toxicity issue that we saw about a month and a half ago, rear its head in the nastiest way possible. So I think this is something where they want the system to burn down, and there are some people that know that this will destroy New York City if Mamdani gets into office, and they're okay with that. Because if if the system is never going to be fixed, then I might as well be able to pay my bills. That's, I think, the mentality there on either side. And there's a similar compatible, I should say, there's a compatible flip side to that on the Trump side as well. Some people that are just like, whatever, we're going to do it the way that I would have done it, whether or not it's going to work out.
Ron, what do you think about the idea that the left lost their leadership through failure? They were built upon defeating the Orange Man for the last decade, and they didn't. And so they've been left rudderless by the fact that none of their leaders were able to deliver what they wanted, which was defeat Trump. Right. And on the right, Trump is going to, retire at some point. And the right has lost through disease and violence and accidents many of their biggest voices, many of their biggest moral and spiritual voices. Peterson, Prager, and Kirk. So, Ron, both sides are looking for inspiration from somebody, and they're waiting for the banner to rise from perhaps a new figure, or who knows, maybe one of those guys comes back. It won't be Charlie Kirk, obviously, but it could be Erica who leads the charge. I don't know yet, Ron, but what do you think about the idea that both sides right now are grasping for somebody? Who is going to be the somebody?
Yeah, well, I mean, and then there's another voice that you haven't mentioned quite yet, and a lot of it started to fall apart even after his loss, and that was Rush Limbaugh.
Oh yeah, that's man. What a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not the devastating way that Charlie Kirk left us. We all knew that his health was declining. We knew that there was a time that he was going to go, but that voice, he was in a lot of ways the father, grandfather, whatever you want to call it, the one who kind of started a movement a long time ago, back as early as the 1980s, becoming a voice that really we hadn't heard in the media at a time when most people thought the media was fair, balanced, and truthful, because we didn't have the 24-hour news cycle back then. I was a very, very young person when I started hearing that voice, and I grew up with, turning on the television to the Today Show and going to sleep to the Tonight Show. It was a very different period of time, but you felt like no matter who was in charge of the country, that we were pretty much mostly unified as Americans, which, to be honest, when I'm out and about at like the grocery store or whatever, I still kind of feel that. I feel like most Americans, online, on X, on social media, we're very loudly one way or the other. But when we're dealing with each other in the stores, we're just like, that's our neighbor, right? So it's really kind of a strange juxtaposition with what we see and are fed from the media versus what our real lives are. As far as leadership, there's not one unifying voice on the right or the left right now that comes to mind. I mean, you look at the characters like AOC, you look at Jasmine Crockett, Ilhan Omar on the left, and they're not voices of leadership, they're voices of division. A Bernie Sanders that wants to talk about democratic socialism. What the heck even is that? It doesn't make any sense. And of course, the left constantly talks about democracy, but they seem to want it in a more pure, I want to say, going back to Greek type of sense, where like everybody had to vote every few days on something instead of a representative republic, which is what we have. It's so strange to see where we are. And I hope we don't stay in this lost position for very long, because somebody on either side needs to rise up, and it's going to be kind of frightening. Going back to Obama, right? Well, going back to Obama and his rise and what happened, and the figure that we all thought he was. I'll never forget when I first saw, I want to say it was 2005 before maybe a Barack Obama interview on Oprah, where it just, hey, he seemed like a really nice guy with a really nice family. And I didn't realize even back then what was being cultivated in this image that was being created and marketed and was ended up not being particularly truthful. We're in a very different climate with social media now, and I hope the truth ends up overcoming the power struggle.
Well, I mean, again, there's aiding and abetting going on by the legacy media out there to distribute fake personalities like Obama and others. It's also kind of trying to rewrite history in real time, with the primary example right now being 35 days of shutdown. So, I mean, you're not wrong to talk about those types of things, but the leadership right now from either side has not defined itself. There's a lot of people that want to be the pretenders to the crown. I mean, Pro talked about Mamdani, who's likely to be elected today to, a mayoral office where he's, promised a bunch of things that he can't deliver because he's not going to have access to the money to do it. And that's a problem. And nobody in the media has been calling that out because legacy media wants, communism. But on the other side of the equation, we don't have anybody, lining up to get, into the next leadership position other than somebody like J.D. Vance, who is a wonderful personality. He clearly understands meme culture and where we are right now, obviously with his Halloween costume, which was brilliant. But outside of that, outside of Mamdani and Vance, who's going to define the future of their party? Because certainly it's not going to be AOC, despite the fact that she scares the pants off of Schumer and that Hakeem Jeffries guy, both of which are in New York, and she could certainly eat their lunch. And that's the other bigger problem. She is the number one money earner, which is what gives her influence and power on the left side of the equation. On the right, believe it or not, it's still Elon Musk presently, especially after the reunification of Trump and Elon because of our loss of Charlie Kirk, and I certainly could see Erica, rising up through the ranks, just following in her husband's footsteps. And she is her own woman and one of the strongest I've ever seen. I believe that, I think what would terrify, the Democrats would be her falling into a leadership position and a potential run at a presidency. That's me speaking. I don't know what anybody else is going to say. And I'm going to say a lot more about that on my show later today.
No, and I hope people will check it out. Yeah. To bring it home to the entertainment side of things, which is our lane that we operate within, part of what is going to be so important over the next year, let's say, is that these companies like Disney and CBS and, Skydance, Comcast, Universal, they're all going to have to figure out exactly who it is they're making movies and TV shows for. And up until, 6 months ago, it was very easy to say, well, listen, it's either those who are interested in truth and universal storytelling and the kind of morals that we all believe in, or it's this postmodern socialist thing, this woke thing that you've been placating to. Okay? So pick your side. But now the left doesn't know what it believes in anymore because it's been so defeated. And it may go towards Mamdani, which is to say that it could go towards total, socialism, and towards what's happening in Europe, which is a terrifying thing. We don't want what's happening in Europe to come to America. I can promise you that. And on the right side, there's now this battle, this splintering and shattering and balkanization. And so this is going to be one of those things where somebody's going to have to decide, what is it? Like if we have two different markets, okay. But if we have 15 different demographics and markets and, cultural movements, that's very difficult to make movies and entertainment for. And that will create a significant disunity. So I think that we better get our houses in order rather quickly, or this disunity will be an ugly, ugly era coming up. Jonas, final words on this one.
Love God, do right. That's all I have to say about that. This is something we have to have principles, and those principles need to be studied at times when they're not necessarily actively applicable. You have to decide what you're going to do when something complicated happens. And if you're going to adapt because you get more information, make sure you understand why the principle is important and whether or not you're willing to give that up. So
yeah, something that I'm noticing, the people who are attacking Erica Kirk just weeks after her husband is taken off this world in a national tragedy, the people who are actually going after her in horrific, ugly, inhumane, unacceptable ways, it's coming from those who label themselves both on the left and the right, whatever that might mean, whether or not you believe that those people are actually part of whatever group they are. I'm seeing it online. I'm seeing it, I'm seeing these memes that they're trying to do, and that's despicable. There's an undercurrent of people who take joy in misery that we have to watch out for. I would recommend, and Jonas, I told you I'd give you the last word, and then I took your last word, so I'm going to give it back to you.
It's fine.
Jonas, to me, the story of the Good Samaritan is where I go back to try to figure out what it is we're supposed to do and how we navigate. And maybe that's the way that we re-inspire people. What's the message of the Good Samaritan, Jonas?
The message of the Good Samaritan is that your neighbor is anyone. It's not the person of your in-group. It is the person that you are capable of helping.
That's right. And the goodness of you is not derived from the tribe, but it's derived from actually who you are in your heart when nobody is looking. That's who you are, and that's the person that you want to lift up to be the best of the best that you can be. Fair enough, Jonas?
I would say that's a very fair.
That might be something that could inspire some young people if we just did it right.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is I worry about the young people that are below the age to be on something like Twitter, getting on there and seeing, oh, well, I'm going to stay away from the filthy things that are clearly marked as 18 and over. And then they see all the adults that are supposed to be the leaders of the party or whatever parties they're in. And it's just a snark fest. It's a one-up contest. And we've got to offer something more exemplar for that.
And I'll say this too, Jonas, as we continue on with our last words that never end. There have been some people who've criticized us and said, oh, well, what you guys are saying about, love your neighbor, the idea that if you don't love your neighbor, then you don't love God. That idea doesn't work because, you guys are saying that, that we should do yada, yada, yada with immigration. It's like, no, folks, the best way you can love your neighbor, at least one of the best ways, is not to put somebody dangerous next to them. And one of the ways that you would not put somebody dangerous next to your neighbor who you're supposed to love is you would know who that person is that you're putting beside them. And if you don't know, then you've inserted some mystery there where tragedy can occur. Loving your neighbor is complex at the state level, but it's simple at the individual level. In your own personal life, you're not making a policy decision when you go out and you see somebody in need. At the higher level of this, where we argue this day in and day out about how you do this in a policy way at the national level, different story. But individually, help those in need, be kind, do the right thing, and be the kind of person that people lean upon in the hard times. Folks, it's time to bid you adieu, but we hope that you will help us anew, and that is, we're only asking you click that like button. Share, subscribe, click it, stick it to those algorithms. It is the notification bell, and drop a comment down below. And oh, by the way, have you gone the way of thatparkplace.com? www.thatparkplace.com. It's the website that if you're not yet bookmarked to, well, you should be. A bastion of truth and knowledge when it comes to entertainment and everything that's going on. Go check it out today, folks. We would love to have you over there as well. All right, we are getting ready to head out, but do not fret, for we will put out 4 more videos tomorrow, so long as the good Lord allows. And we believe that probably, just might, happen. All right, until the next time we get to share time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Jump into the water!
Why listen to music made by people and companies who really don't like you? Check out Vacation Radio today and prepare for all new content made by the people behind the WDW Pro Channel. It's the place you need for all the music. That should be fun. Hundreds of songs, every genre you can imagine. Listen live on YouTube and enjoy a set list that's always sunny. It's Vacation Radio.
Pineapple pizza, Hawaiian ice freeze, yeah. Can't wait to be up. 3 days of you and me.
What are you waiting for? Every WDW Pro video has a link to Vacation Radio in the video description. Try it out and subscribe today.